What gear do I use and why?
I keep a photograph in which we were in love, caught in your eyes, waiting for the sunrise. I barely even knew who you were.
Good morning. I don't know if you can see this, but behind me is the lake, and the lake is frozen. Very nice sight too, I've got to say, but I am in the woodlands. Today I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to go through what most photographers do at some stage, and that's what's in my camera bag, but I'm going to do it with a twist. I'm not going to sit in a nice warm house with a cup of coffee with a soft glowing light beside me. I'm going to do it in the woodlands, in the cold. Okay, let's start with what I'm filming with now. Now, at the moment I'm filming with the DJI Pocket 3. I had 3 criteria that I wanted to fulfill for the camera to do these vlogs with. One was it must have a USB-C port because I want to be able to use my wireless microphone system. 2, it had to work in low light because beforehand I was using my mobile phone, and the woodlands aren't always the best first thing in the morning for light, and the phone just didn't really cut it. 3, I wanted to be able to fix it onto a tripod. So the only thing available to me at the time with the most ease to it, without having to buy lots of accessories, was the DJI Pocket 3. So that's what we've got now, and it works perfectly. But I get some extras with the Pocket 3 that I didn't really count on, and I'll go through those. So these are pluses. One, it's got a face tracking system, so it will follow me around, which means I can walk around and show you things like trees and this camera over here, and sort of walk this way and say, oh, look at this one over here, this is nice. And I didn't plan on that, but it's a nice bonus. And 2, it's got a gimbal as well, so the horizon is always going to be level. So with the Pocket 3, that was a great choice. The only downside, if there is a downside, is that it's not weatherproof. I don't think it's weatherproof anyway. So obviously I can't go off in the rain and all this sort of thing and start filming and doing those sort of things. And why would I, to be honest? I don't want to get wet myself. I'm not sure I'm weatherproof. The next thing is the wireless microphone system. Now I currently use the Full Aim X5. It's a great little mic set. You get in a nice little box, rechargeable box, and inside you get 2 mics. I've got one here, one there, and the receiver, which is already on the X5 with the USB-C port connector. Now, the original mic system I was using, which went into my phone, was great for the phone, but it didn't work that well with the DJI Pocket 3, and I'll tell you why. I had no volume control. I couldn't control the volume, so the focals was just getting distorted all the time. But with this one, you got the volume control, so you can control the volume how you want it, and it's quite a reasonable price. I think these came out at about £110. I think not a lot of money really when you compare it to the DJI versions, and I think they work just as well. So if you're looking for a wireless mic system, I would recommend these. I thought I'd change the background for you. I thought you might be getting bored of the icy lake, so I'll give you some trees instead. Anyway, onwards and upwards. The next thing on the agenda is the little box that makes the magic work. Now I use the D800, the Nikon D800. It's a great camera, and I have absolutely no intention of changing this camera until it's absolutely necessary to do so. I mean, it's getting quite an old body now. It came out in about 2012, and at the time was Nikon's flagship camera with its 36 megapixel full frame sensor. Now, the advantage of having the full frame sensor over a crop sensor, say from a D800, is that the full frame sensor, it gives you a shallower depth of field if you want to create a little bit more magic, and also it works in low light a lot better and picks up a lot more detail than what a crop sensor would. That's not saying the crop sensors are no good, because they are good and they have some advantages over the full frame sensor, which I can go into another time if you wish. But yeah, that's a really good camera, and I'm not going to change that. I've dropped it quite a few times, or it's fell off the tripod or the tripod's fell over a few times, and there's not a dent on it. So it's built like a tank. It's going to last forever. I think they're good for something like, or they say they're good for like 250,000 actuations. But I've seen some of these for sale with 500,000 actuations on them. And they're not a lot of money these days, second hand. So if you're looking for a good camera with quite a large megapixel count, then you can do a lot worse. Now comes to my choice of lenses for woodland photography. There are two main lenses I use, this being one of them. Now, it could be argued that the lens is more important than the camera body itself. There's no point in having a high megapixel sensor if your lens can't deliver the information and the goods to the sensor. I use the Nikon 24-120 f4. f4 just means it's a constant f4 aperture, and you can stomp it down to up to 22. This one goes, and I find it a really good lens. It's really sharp. I have no issues with it at all. It's a versatile lens because it's the 24-120 millimeters. And when I was looking at lenses for woodland photography, I did look at the 24-70, which is one of the holy trinity that everybody likes and everybody wants. But I sort of decided that I wanted an extra reach with the lens. So, and plus the 24-70 is a 2.8 lens. I don't need 2.8 aperture in the woodlands. We just don't need it. You really don't need it. f4 is perfect. So with this lens over the 24-70, I get the extra reach, and it's a lot lighter, and it's a lot cheaper as well. So that's my first lens. Now my second lens choice is a 70-200. It's an incredibly good lens. It's fantastic, and I don't use it enough. And once again, I don't need the 2.8 version. The 2.8 version is bigger, it's heavier, it's longer, and you know, I want to keep the weight down. And I would never ever shoot anything in the woodlands an aperture of 2.8. Never. f4 is fine, it's brilliant. But the reason I don't use it that much is because I find the 24-120, as I said, a very versatile lens, and that delivers most of my needs. But I've always got this with me, just in case. But it's a fantastic lens. It's sharp as anything. The colours are great on it. So yeah, if you're doing woodland photography and you want a 70-200, don't be fooled by having to go for the 2.8. You don't need it. f4 is perfect. There is one more lens that I do tend to keep with me just in case, because every photography bag should have one of these. It's the nifty 50. Now, me going on about apertures, this is a 1.8. but it's a prime lens, so again, because it's a prime lens, it specializes in that 50mm, so that's all it's ever going to do. And again, it's so sharp, and these are so cheap. I think this one cost me, going back a couple of 100 years now, I think this cost me about, I don't know, £100, maybe 105. But the quality you get, and they're full frame lenses as well. So if you stuck this onto a crop sensor, which you can do, it effectively becomes a 75mm lens, which then becomes really, really good for portraits. I mean, when I do portraits, I use my 85mm 1.8, but I have used this for portraits as well, even on the full frame, because it's so sharp. It's a lovely lens. So I would use this really for sort of doing sort of close-up work, handheld, so I'd be in manual mode rather than aperture mode, and it delivers every time. It's a great lens. So recommend that one. I do recommend. Can you get that? That's the 50mm 1.8. Go and get it. It's good. Right. I just thought we'd have another scenery change. Next up, are filters. I've got an array of filters, ND filters, you name it, I've got it. I've got a whole lot. I don't know why, but the only one I would use is the polarizer. And this is, I don't know if you can see, it's the landscape polarizer. It's a great little filter actually, but to use it you have to attach that ring to your lens, attach that to the ring, so you can fit that. But it's great. What it does, it takes the glare away from the leaves. It's been raining and the sun's shining on them. It takes the glare away so you can see the leaves. It also works on water as well, so it takes the glare away from the water. And just cuts straight through, and it also enhances the colours too, which is quite nice. So with all the filters I've got, this is the only one that I would use, and the only one I'll probably keep. I'll probably gladly get rid of all the others, to be honest with you, because they're just sitting there gathering dust. I've got them all in my bag as well. Never use them. I could cut some weight down with that. As for the tripod I use, I've got the Zoom A, was it? The Zoom A Z888. Not a terribly expensive tripod, but it does the job and I really like it. And it served me well. But again, I think this was only about 60-70 quid. It wasn't a lot of money. But you know what? It gets thrown in the back of the car once I've done this, and I've had it for about 2 years and it hasn't let me down. It's not fell apart yet, he says. Well, that's about it really. That's the main gear I use for woodland photography, and I hope you found it interesting. I tend to like what other photographers are using in their bags, to be honest with you, although I'm kind of wishing now that I'd done it in a nice room with soft lighting and a cup of coffee, because it's bleeding cold. But look, all that's left to say is thanks for watching. If you got this far, thank you very much. Have a good day, have a good weekend, and I'll see you soon. And in the meantime, take care.